Welcome to Push Your Glasses Up. I'm Mikey.
And I'm Reena, and hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. My desk is a little wonky right now because I removed and moved around certain things on it, so I'm much closer to this and this than I normally would be, and I feel very cramped right now because of it.
I'm much closer to my plants and Grogu over here, so it's a good spot for me. But it was only a matter of time.
Of frame.
Oh, well.
This is the new recurring gag, is you doing stuff out of frame.
Yep. You'd be like, it's right over here. Have you seen this?
Yeah, but we got first couple episodes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier to go over, which were great.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
I appreciate that they, the same way WandaVision spoke to, personal work, this is taking just as seriously a more social message that is going on, which I know some people are gonna complain about, but I think it's a tremendously accessible way to confront these topics that need to be talked about. So I appreciate that they're going in that direction with this show.
Well, they both deal with topics of grief from a very different perspective too, because men dealing with grief is very different than women dealing with grief, and it seems like both Sam and Bucky, without Steve around, their method of dealing is just kind of trying to push forward. Just kind of push forward, do their thing. When we first see Sam, he, is like in full Falcon mode. Like he's doing what he can. He has like Red Wings like his best buddy. And it seems like that's how he's processing, but he's not ready to step into Steve's footsteps necessarily.
Yeah, and so we can kind of jump around a little bit with that too, because like the when you go forward to the sort of therapy session with the two of them,
in the second episode,
it gets to a point where Bucky does open up with if he was wrong about you, then he was wrong about me, and then Sam still is locked down about it. And that's a thing that we'll see move forward from there. But I think that is him still going through the process of like partially the grief, partially the I can not live up to the expectations, and also what does it mean for him specifically to hold that mantle in a grander view of things. So I think we'll get there. I think we're going to see maybe Bucky do a little more olive branch first. And maybe Sam reciprocates with time a little bit after that. But yeah, I just find it extremely interesting how they're handling a lot of this stuff.
Well, and it's like, in the MCU, Captain America is like more than just Steve Rogers. Like he's a symbol for all things good, and like it is a lot to live up to. Like I get it. Like stepping into that mantle, like can you live up to the example that Steve set?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that Sam throughout their whole friendship has always looked up to him. Yeah. Like they were always good friends, but he always looked up to him. And I mean I get that like level of pressure of like I'm not Steve. But I don't think Steve was asking him to be new Steve when he handed him the shield at the end of Endgame. And I think that's what he needs to like. I don't think he thinks that Steve was wrong or that Steve saw that in him. Like Bucky is like kind of the opposite, but just that he's like, oh no, like I'm not on your level. I'm on your left, but I'm not on your level.
Right.
And then I love Bucky in this, by the way, too. Like so much.
It's fantastic. They're both great in this show. Sebastian Stan, I think, is putting a lot of like I don't want to say the focus, but I think he's portraying a very complex version of what Steve didn't go through, or that we didn't see Steve go through. And it's heavy. It's a very different version of heavy for what Bucky is going through than what Sam is going through, but like they're both, I think, handling it very, very well with their performances on this. I
mean, you can tell there's so much trauma.
Yeah.
There is just like, I appreciate that they're showing that side and not that, he's just trying to move on with his life and find where he fits, where Steve had that advantage a little bit, like fish out of water trying to find his fit, but like didn't have to atone for, like, as Natasha would say, red in the ledger. Oh my God.
Right.
How much red is in the ledger of the Winter Soldier. But, and Natasha became a hero, and I will compare them because I love Bucky and Natasha, and I'm sad that Black Widow's not going to be in this most likely. But, she kind of atoned for it by becoming an Avenger and working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and like doing all these things. But that doesn't really exist right now. So he's literally trying to find his own way to like pick up the pieces. But like he did a lot of fucked up shit. Like a lot of fucked up shit.
Yeah. Well,
that's not something you just go like, okay, never mind.
And it's been established, like in Civil War, they touch on this where Tony says, like, do you even remember the people that you've done this to? And he looks him in the eye and says, every single one of them. So like there is a long-term part of this that has been building, and they mention in this that the one time where he felt peace was in Wakanda. Mm-hmm. The one time he actually didn't have that weight on him, or not that he didn't have it on him, that he was able to process it maybe a little bit. So yeah, I'm super interested to see where that goes as well.
It all comes back to like one small performance in Winter Soldier. Remember when he was like in the chair and he kept going, but I know him. And that facial expression, he's like carried through this whole like couple episodes.
Yeah, definitely. So on top of that, we can go back to specifically the first episode with like how grounded I want, like, it's obviously like a fantastic and heightened version of these things. They're superheroes, but like it's pretty great to see the more down to earth stuff. Like we see Bucky getting forced into a date situation. We see Sam and his family dealing with the financial stuff, which was another harsh reality moment, the bank scene.
Although they don't have like home loans for veterans. I mean, Sam is still a veteran even though he's Falcon.
Well, there's that, but there's also the social aspect of people being denied historically. Mm-hmm. But then on top of that, there's the whole Sam didn't exist for 5 years. Mm-hmm. So there's like, it's an easy out to perpetuate the imbalances in things that we saw. So
it's nice to see Sam with his family too, because a lot
Uncle
of
Sam, great.
Yep.
Great touch.
Because like obviously pretty much everyone was gone for Cap, like with the exception of Clint's family, like we really didn't get to see too much of
home life,
of that aspect. Yeah.
I think most characters in this universe that we have been focused on aren't allowed that, or don't allow themselves that. I mean, as much as people may dislike the Bruce and Natasha stuff, I get where they were going with that, because they're two people who feel like they can't have that. So that's one thing that they can feel connected about.
But if they didn't do that, they could have Winter Widow. Anyway.
In theory, they still could have done that.
I would... That's just such a better match. But anyway.
Yeah.
I digress.
But yeah,
I like that it's grounded in that carrying on from WandaVision, everyone's dealing with post-blip life.
Yeah. And this, like I said before, like this, as opposed to WandaVision's focusing on the singular turmoil, this involves a much wider net for showcasing what that means for people. And I think they're just doing a fantastic job with it. Seeing Sam go into the Smithsonian and talk with Rhodey, like we didn't even know he was going to be in this necessarily.
Oh my god, I forgot that Rhodey was in here. That was such a good moment too.
That was a fantastic, simple scene. Like just them talking one-on-one with the imagery in the background of Steve and little Easter egg. There is a poster that was a crew gift on the first Avenger, which was painted by Pablo Rivera, and it looks like a 1930s 1940s movie poster, and that was in the TV screens in that room, and I got super stoked to see that. But yeah, like it was just a nice simple scene that like it conveyed a lot of the weight of what Sam is going through, and Anthony Mackie has a ton of charisma, and his scenes are always fun when he's leading with that. But I think he's doing a tremendous job in this show, in those heavier moments, in those more serious moments. I think he's doing a better job than he's ever done in the other movies with dealing with that, because also maybe he just hasn't been given enough of a chance to do that, because obviously he's been in dramas that he does a great job, so it's maybe he just hasn't been given the vehicle in this universe yet to do that.
I wish they would call back more into like when he met Steve, he was helping veterans transition back into civilian life.
Yeah.
So he does understand that aspect, and I hope that we see that. Like as he and Bucky hopefully like get a little bit closer, because if anybody understands that transition and like even a little bit, it would be him.
Yeah, like that he could be that for Bucky.
Because I don't even think Bucky wants to be his friend. I think he just has no one else.
Yeah, exactly. It's the quote unquote childish way that they act with one another is that like location based friendship of childhood where you fight with your friends because they're the only ones that live in your neighborhood, but they're still your friends, but you all are dicks to each other once in a while. It kind of plays like that to me, and it's an interesting take to see. Obviously, grown adults, one of them over 100 years old, do that with one another. But to move a little bit beyond that, and then to still in the first episode, but the reveal of why Bucky befriended that old man.
Oof. Right in the heart space.
It's clearly foreshadowed, but on my first viewing of it, because I watched it a second time, on my first viewing, I did not see it coming whatsoever. I thought it was just a flashback to show the PTSD, the nightmare that he lives every night.
I didn't put it together either. And then when he was like helping him out, I just assumed that he was like a guy that lived in his building and
just trying to be a nice guy to somebody of his age group. Yeah. And then that crack of that door is, oh man, is brutal. Yeah, I really appreciate the quiet moments that this show is doing. It's similar to the weird and then also the quiet moments of WandaVision. I just think that the way that these shows are allowing these characters to breathe is something that they've needed for a long time, because we've obviously gotten, 3 movies where Captain America is the lead, 3 movies where Iron Man is the lead, 3 movies with Thor. Like, we have a lot of time with these characters. Granted, some do better than others with what these characters are going through. Thor, maybe not so much, but we do get some of that, but it's not as intensive as, what we get in Iron Man 3, what we get in the Winter Soldier for the other characters. But I think that giving these characters room to breathe is just something that's going to endear them more to people, even though people already love them. I think people were more in love with silhouettes of these characters before, where now they're fleshed out. They're a little bit more relatable. And it's just doing a great job showcasing that these are people. Like, they're superheroes, but they're just people, and they have similar things that we all deal with. Superheroes, just like us.
Yep. But we were talking about characters that we love. Let's talk about a new character that we're not supposed to love at all, which is at the end of episode 1, we see somebody else pick up Cap's shield.
Kurt Russell's real-life son. Ego, the living planet's son.
That's not Star-Lord.
That's why I said real life.
But yeah, I in that moment, I was so mad. I have a lot of anger issues, like, after 2020, like, just anyway, and politics and everything just makes me mad about life. And so I was like, I had to step back. Like, I couldn't take it. Now I ride the exercise bike while I watch this, so I can, like, channel that, like, anger and aggression somehow.
Energy. Yeah.
But I was like, what the actual fuck? That all you had to do was put, like, a subtitle that just said "the audacity." How dare you? How very dare you?
Yeah, so the thing with U.S. this is going to be
U.S. agent,
the thing with U.S. agent is, I do not know where they're going with this character here, but I know where the character has been in the comics. And depending on the timeline, he was a villain at one point who was super cool with fascism and keeping certain groups of people down. And I don't know if they're going to do that in this. It's hard to tell. It, like, the introduction of the character is him just, like, trying to be trying to live up to an expectation. So it's extremely hard to tell how they're going to go with this. I, in the second episode, was getting frustrated because I'm trying to lean into the idea of not knowing who that character is from the comics. I'm trying to just, close the blinds on that a little bit to experience the show with fresh eyes. And so I'm like in this war of attrition within myself of, like, wanting to like the character that they have set up so far until towards the end of this second episode where he's like, then stay the hell out of my way. That's a dick move, and it immediately shuts that off. But, like, I'm trying to go into it a little more in the fog about who the character is, because they did a good job at the beginning of this episode of making him a sympathetic character. Not necessarily that you would like him, but a sympathetic character.
And very relatable. I'm sure that many people, especially anyone who has, like, military in their family, probably knows somebody like this guy.
Right. He seems like salt of the earth, nice Midwest boy. Like
you could see him in, like, any, like, I don't know, like in Texas. Like, he just seems like that guy.
Right. And so
played college, like, football, like that kind of guy.
Yeah, well, they on his high school football field where he was like the I don't know if they said the captain of the team, but he said he was a captain twice. Could have been military. Could have been on the football field.
Like also had like drives a truck. You know, likes to have like watch the Sunday game with his boys. Like he just seems like, you know, your basic white guy.
He gets in his pickup truck with his blue jeans and he takes a girl down by the river and every other pop country song that's ever been written.
Right. He's that dude.
Yeah. But I'm interested to see where they take this because they have set it up for him to be a sympathetic character so that you at least have an idea of where he's coming from. And the way that they set it up now, it'll be interesting to see if they do try to make him go villain or if they just kind of heel turn him at the end. It would make more sense now to just make him a jealous villain as opposed to like a deep-seated villain. And so he becomes U.S. agent when Sam becomes Cap, and then it's just like, oh, it's Cap versus Cap, but not for the weighty reasons. It's a little fluff. I think that would work a little bit better than the other stuff.
This is just speculation, but I'm wondering with the terrorist organization.
Well, they're making them sympathetic too, yeah.
But that's what I mean, and that might be where the split comes from with how he wants to deal with it as a modern military man. Right. And how, like, Bucky's experience with Hydra and everything that Sam has seen from being an Avenger might inform that a little differently. He might feel more sympathetic to them, you know, and what they've gone through when everybody blipped. So I feel like we're going to come to a head in fundamentally different of, like, how, you know, they're going to call in, like, a drone strike over here. And he's like, no, like, we don't just murder people. I feel like we might have some kind of split of that, but I know Zemo is coming because that was the end of the second episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, in
everything we know, but
in the trailers, we saw him put the purple hood on,
which is not good, and that makes me so nervous for Bucky.
Yeah, that's gonna be a confrontation. But yeah, I'm glad we're getting a little bit of setup before. But not having to wait too long before getting to the Zemo stuff. Like, the end of the second episode, they straight up say, let's go see Zemo. Like, real casual. Like, but yeah, I'm glad that we're getting to that quicker rather than later. But
did we want to talk about Isaiah Bradley?
Yeah, that's where I was trying to think of, like, the lead into my
psychic powers.
The fact that they're covering the forgotten black, like, soldiers and military personnel and relating it to the fact that there were actual experiments done in the U.S. military, like testing out from ranging from, like, weapons like mustard gas to things like purposefully causing them to have syphilis and then testing things on them that way. It's the fact that they're covering that with this is extremely sensitive, and I think that they're doing a very good job with it, and the torment that it has caused Isaiah, I think they did a great job showing that on screen, and I think showing the reveal of who he is as far as getting the strength and stuff. I think that was done very well, as to not just be like, oh, he's just another super soldier. Like, I think they handled that commentary very well, and I'm very excited to see where that goes, because on top of that, there's like zero doubt in my mind that the kid that answered the door is Eli. So we're getting Patriot. So on top of Miss Marvel, on top of Hawkeye, on top of just like a ton of other characters, the Young Avengers are all being introduced now. Like, it's such a fantastic, like, little note. That's all. They didn't They never said his name. They never but if you're in the know, you're in the know. And with all the other breadcrumbs that have been kind of leading up, this is, if you know, you know, and it's cool. That's just a cool moment for the insiders, where it's not something where if you don't know, you're like, well, who the hell was that? Why didn't they talk about it? It was just it's just a family member. That's fine. Mm-hmm. So I love how this whole scene played out. Just I love that who they got to play him is also the voice of Martian Manhunter from Justice League Unlimited as well. But yeah, I love the intro to this. I love where they're walking up and they're having that back and forth with the kid. And then I love just that moment of staring down Bucky and being like, what the fuck? Like, why are you here? What the fuck? Mm-hmm.
I like when he says your people, but he's talking about Hydra.
Right, yeah. And it's like, and it works.
But he throws that ways. Back.
And it's just, it's so well done. And then even the aftermath of Sam and Bucky arguing in the street afterwards and having that moment where the cops pull up and only asking for the ID of Sam. That's.
And even though in the end, Bucky had a warrant out, which they say afterwards, but immediately they just go for Sam.
Yeah, and it's the topics that they're handling on this show. As much as people love to, or some people, I don't want to put it as a large group because it's not. But as much as some people will say oh, keep politics out of comics, blah 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 blah.
It's Captain America. It's the most political thing.
Not only that, but it's also the only way that we move forward with certain things in society is to address them directly. And if a kid watches this show and actually sees that, because I grew up in a 99% white town.
Both of us did.
Yeah, we didn't see this.
No.
We were ignorant to it, and that's ridiculous that we didn't have that perspective growing up.
Oh no, and we grew up in small towns where chances are if something happened and there was a cop, that was someone's dad that you went to high school with. And it was, it's just our experience in life has been completely different. And I like that it shows it doesn't matter that he is Sam Wilson, the Falcon, the Avenger, that's not even registered right away, even though in this universe he's very recognizable and people know him.
Right.
That's been very established.
Well, on top of that, you can also see he gets kind of upset with Bucky when he says, do you know who this is? Because it shouldn't matter. But on top of that, I the point I was just trying to make is just that if a young kid is going to see this and it's going to allow them to empathize with a situation and allow them to learn about compassion for what other people are going through, that's a good thing. I don't understand why anybody is ever in a place of so much privilege to say that I just want to watch them punch each other. It doesn't that's not the point of any story. Any story. Even fucking Fast and the Furious has a point to it. And that point is family. But it's there's a reason why we enjoy stories. It's because there's meat to them. It's because there's something more than just cartoons. And I say cartoons flippantly as a person who love cartoons. I'm using it as what other people use as childish and don't have meaning, because they obviously have meaning.
No.
But will we talk about Invincible at some point soon? Hope so, because that show's great. But yeah, it's important that these things are covered in an accessible way, because that's how we introduce these topics both bluntly and carefully at the same time.
But I think you can't escape it, right? Because every time, you know, a black character steps into a popular mantle, right? Like Black Captain America or Black Spider-Man, or there's like fucking hoopla and angry people. And how do you not address
bullshit. That? Yeah.
Exactly. Like, how do you not address it? I remember when they announced Miles Morales, and everyone was like, what the, like, freaking out. And it's like, you know, and now we have the Spider-Verse, where, you know, there's all kinds of different people with spider powers, and some people are Spider-Man and some people have their own moniker, but like whatever. But like, you wouldn't have to address it if like they're like, well, Sam Wilson's Captain America, and people go, oh yeah, that makes sense. But no, we're not there.
Well, it's the point of anyone can wear the mask. Like, it's, yeah, the mantle is important. And you need to find the right person to fill that mantle. But anybody can fill that spot. Anybody can wear those shoes. Whether they feel that they are up to it or not, like Sam feels he is not up to it, that's a different discussion. But anybody can stand up and be that person. Mm-hmm. And I think that they're doing a great job showing that struggle and showing that message is much broader than just about the superheroes. Like, mm-hmm. it's an important message to stand up for people. It is an important message to show that you're not willing to lay down and let somebody else suffer just because it doesn't affect you. And I don't know. I'm going to get redundant about it, but it's important that we see these things in such a spotlighted way in media.
But also, this takes place in our world, right?
Yeah.
This takes place, and this kind of stuff happens every day. And I get it.
Like that whole scene with Isaiah and the cops after Isaiah's house. That's Baltimore. There's mm-hmm. a reason they chose Baltimore. Like, mm-hmm. Yeah. And
like, that is something that we've all seen it. We've been driving and you see like 3 cop cars and you see like one black guy that's like pulled over on the side of the road and you're like, oh, okay. Like, who hasn't seen that?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what did he do? Why are there so many cop cars? Must have done something really bad. But like, no, that's not how it works. And that is the reality. Like, you can get mad about it, but that's the reality that we live in. And that is what people have to face. And it would not matter if the Avengers were real and lived in this world, and they would still probably have these problems. If Sam Wilson was an actual person, he would experience racism.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's persecution in the Marvel universe is persecution that exists in our world. Like, that's the point of the X-Men. Like,
right?
It is right there on the page. It's right there on the screens. It's a heightened version of our reality. So
I hate when people say, "Don't it shouldn't be political." Like, literally, The Winter Soldier was a political thriller. Number one. Number two.
Not only that, a political assassin.
Right.
Like, that's
and like, one of the biggest moments for Captain America was him punching Hitler.
Great moment.
But like, again, like, I don't think it's like, you can't tell people to keep politics out of comics or TV shows or media if it just doesn't happen to be where you're politically aligned.
Yeah, if you can't deal with it, don't watch it.
Like, I'm sorry.
You have the option to turn off the TV if you don't want to. Like, it's just like anything. The other day I saw somebody who is barely ever on Twitter anymore get on Twitter specifically to live tweet a movie, and then every single one of the tweets that they put out in that thread was basically, well, I hate this. Well, I hate this. Well, I hate this. I'm like, shut it off. You don't have to do this to yourself if you don't. Yeah.
No, in controversial opinion, the Avengers are Antifa. And Captain America is literally Antifa. The textbook definition. Punching Hitler.
Yeah, so it's I'm glad that this show is making people uncomfortable.
Like, I want a shirt that says that, by the way. The Avengers are Antifa.
They are both spelled with A for a reason. Yeah, this show is just like, it's blowing me away to the same level as WandaVision did for different reasons. And part of that is because I think going into it, we were somewhat sold on this show being Lethal Weapon, like the funny buddy cop show. And it's that, but more. And they're just doing a really good job of giving us what they're promising, but not even padding it out, just expanding on everything on top of that. And it's working well. I think WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier are some of the best things that the MCU has to offer. Like, we talked about it on the last time we talked about WandaVision, how I have that show in my top 3 for ranking the entire universe. Already, this is going to be very high for me as well.
Oh, yeah.
And sure, there's still 4 episodes left where it could change, but like, it's right now, if it keeps pace,
there's only 4 episodes
gonna be stellar.
Left?
It's a 6-episode season, yeah.
Oh.
It's the same length of season in watch hours.
Oh,
but it's because WandaVision had shorter episodes, especially the first 3, which were all like half-hour sitcom episodes.
Okay.
So they're all going to be about the same length, just not the same number of episodes. That's what PYGU said a while back, like right before WandaVision was coming out, I think is when he kind of touched on that. So, yeah.
Excited for the next episode for sure.
It is a wild time right now. Now Fridays have Invincible and then this. And there is basically a movie every week. Like this week we have an episode of Invincible, an episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Godzilla versus Kong. All in one week. It is bonkers. I did just have to adjust the calendar a little bit because now Mortal Kombat got delayed a week, and the finale episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the same week as that now as well.
Can you just give me like Lewis?
I just spent so much time. I just spent so much time doing that calendar.
At least you did it in Google Calendar to make it easier to move around.
Yeah, drag and drop. But yeah, now I'm so excited to see where the show continues to go. And other than that, I think we covered a lot of what I was hoping to cover. So yeah.
Yep. Although I was going to say, I love all the memes. What's his name? John Walker?
Yeah.
All the memes about that people have been posting, like...
Yeah.
Like, he would say, like, not all men. All lives matter.
Yeah. Amelia had one that took off the other day.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's...
She liked mine, which was, I think Scarlett Johansson can play whoever she wants to. Just tying it all back in.
It works on multiple levels. Yes.
So many levels. Oh my god, he reminds me of my ex-boss who I like went to war with because he was just such a misogynistic prick.
Yeah, I could see that also poking through, but
yeah, slightly triggered, a little triggered.
Yeah. So that's the thing is we'll see where they go with that character. I kind of hope they don't go the like comic villain stuff, like the actual true to comics villain stuff. I hope they just make it more about the competition between the characters wanting to both be that thing. So we'll see. We got a little whiles to go before we kind of get there, but I'm excited to get there when we do. But other than that, I think that's going to do it. So we'll be back
good to me.
In a matter of days with a Godzilla versus Kong review.
Oh my god, I want them to be giant kaiju friends. That's all I want in my life. But I know they have to fight because someone that's not Ken Watanabe this time is going to tell them to fight, to allow them to be.
Well, I mean, it's basically going to be Mecha Ghidorah.
Wait, Mecha Ghidorah? Not Mecha Godzilla?
Well, they cut off Ghidorah's head in the last one. So I would assume it can't be Mecha Godzilla if they're using Ghidorah. But we'll see. It's But it's Batman v Superman. They're going to punch each other and then team up, and then that's how that works. Like every other superhero movie. Oh god, I'm so tired of the Mothra Martha joke.
I didn't even think of that, but I love Mothra so much.
I've been seeing it for a year and a half, and this past week it has gained a lot of recycled use on Twitter. So
yeah, well, you can blame the Snyderverse for that. Let's just blame them for everything.
No, I'm gonna blame people for seeing a joke and rewording it and using it as their own, as people do on Twitter.
I want a Mothra plushie.
You could. I have a friend you could probably commission that from.
I want one so bad.
Okay. We're veering off into the next episode already, so let's finish it up. We will be back with that Godzilla vs. Kong review sometime next week. But until then, I think we're gonna call it. So we'll see you then, and bye.